Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Inside Out 2, number 2 would be Bad Boys Ride or Die, number 3 would be the Garfield movie, number 4 would be If, and number 5 would be The Watchers. And I got 3 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. Unfortunately nobody else got their predictions right. There was one movie that had a crazy good hold all of a sudden. And this movie I did not just mention, so it's a movie that had kind of dipped out for a bit, and it clung on a little more, which is kind of surprising. So it'll be a little exciting to talk about. This is going to be an exciting episode. So many box office winners. Let's dive right on into it. Of course, number 1 was Inside Out 2. That was obvious, but I think a lot of people were just really surprised by how well it did. A lot of people were kind of projecting it to be on the lower end as far as opening weekends. The first movie opened with about $90 million on its opening weekend. So people were kind of like maybe around there, but maybe a little bit under, just because, Pixar, even Lightyear, based on IP brand, couldn't really get tons of butts in the seats. So who knows where we're at as far as an Inside Out sequel. Obviously their hope is to make as much money as possible, but we'll see. Maybe Lightyear was just a weird thing. And yeah, it is a weird thing because this movie really went over a lot of people's estimations. It opened to $155 million, and that is just domestically. Now, we've got a lot of stats here that I'm going to read off to you really quickly about this opening weekend, so let's just blaze on through. This is the biggest domestic opening weekend since Barbie's $162 million from last year. So that came out in July last year. It has almost been a whole year since we have had an opening almost as big as Barbie, right? Also, it is an opening weekend that is $65 million over the original films, like I mentioned, like about $90 million. It is also, for Pixar, the second largest opening weekend for them. It is right behind Incredibles 2 by $27 million. And it's also the second biggest animated opening of all time, right behind Incredibles 2. This is just purely animation, not animation made to look like live action CGI like The Lion King. Maybe that would disrupt some things. But as far as just purely animated films, that this is the second largest opening domestically. It is also the largest opening of 2024. Previously it was Dune 2 with $82 million, and now this one has just completely blown it out of the water. Denis Villeneuve, when he said he was kind of disappointed that no other films could top his opening weekend for Dune 2 yet, you got your wish. You got Inside Out 2. There will probably be at least a couple more, Deadpool and Wolverine will probably get up there. Obviously, it's, that those estimations are already kind of out that it's going to make bank, but we're getting in the groove of, these higher opening weekends kind of once again, at least for these bigger IP films, obviously. And then worldwide, it is sitting at $295 million. So the production budget for this movie was $200 million. That's kind of like the base for a lot of these higher budgeted Pixar or just Disney movies in general. So having an worldwide opening of $295 million. They are about $105 million away from doubling that budget already. Yeah, they're in a great space. Way better than where they've been, right? This is also the biggest animated film opening of all time worldwide, and the largest opening of 2024 globally. So there you go. Just knocking records left and right. As far as Pixar as a whole, domestically, we'll just break down those numbers really quickly. It has already outgrossed The Good Dinosaur by $32 million, Cars 3 by $3 million, Onward by $94 million, Soul by $155 million, Luca $154, same with Turning Red, $37 million over Lightyear, and just $1 million over Elemental. Last year, Elemental was Pixar's release, so it is already in its opening weekend made more than the entire domestic run of Elemental. That I'm sure this will embolden Pixar's decision to really focus on, these properties that they have for maybe way longer than they should. But hey, they gotta win. It now needs $7 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of A Bug's Life. And then the worldwide numbers for Pixar, it is outgrossed Onward by $162 million, Soul by $175, Luca $244, Turning Red $283, and Lightyear by $77 million. And it needs $38 million until it outgrosses The Good Dinosaur. So already in a really great spot for Pixar, not just, blasting through the recent, COVID releases and just underperformers, but looking at domestically, getting Good Dinosaur and Cars 3 out of the way, they are in a really great spot to really get up there. For second largest opening for Pixar ever, yeah, it's gonna blast through so many of these other movies. It's only $7 million behind A Bug's Life domestically, like I said, and $38 million for Good Dinosaur worldwide. Yeah, that's easy peasy. We'll probably be seeing it outgross Inside Out, the first one, maybe not immediately next weekend. I guess it depends. I don't have the immediate stats of how well that movie did, but domestically or worldwide, but it could be pretty quickly, because 65 million over the original opening weekend. Yeah. And next weekend, it'll probably, considering the only like bigger release is the Bike Riders, which probably will not do, gangbusters at the box office. It, could do well. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for that one doing well, but we'll get to that later, obviously. I think, that kind of audience will not take away from Inside Out 2. This is going to hold over very well, I'm pretty sure. As far as the year 2024, because like I said, it's the biggest opening, we got to talk about 2024 stats. And I feel like it's a little later in the year where it'll be more interesting to talk about. It has already, for domestic numbers, outgrossed Frozen Empire by 42 million. That is the Ghostbusters movie, and now needs 2 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That being said, it is already in the top 5 highest grossing domestic runs of the year. And then worldwide, it has outgrossed the Garfield movie by 78 million, now needs 79 million until it outgrosses Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So in both lists, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the next one to beat, but it's going to get up there. It's the highest opening weekend of the year. It's going to be outgrossing all of these movies pretty much. Even Dune 2 with its, what was it, 700, 800 million worldwide total? Like, yeah, with an opening of 295 million, that is nothing. We're going to see this one go on and on and on. And then number 2, we have Bad Boys Ride or Die. And I was curious. I knew it was, going to be number 2. I didn't think it was going to drop off drastically, but I was wondering, how well the hold was going to be. And it only dropped about 40 to 45%, which is a really great hold for this movie. It made 33 million, which now adds to a domestic total of 112 million. Domestically, it has outgrossed the original film by 47 million. It now needs 26 until it outgrosses the sequel. And then worldwide, it is sitting at $214 million. So it's outgrossed the original film by 73 million. It now needs 59 million until the sequel. But more importantly, it has already doubled its $100 million initial production budget. So it really is just a matter of time now until they announce that they are going to move forward with a Bad Boys 5, which, they've earned it, you know what I mean? Making back that budget in their second weekend. Ghostbusters, which is also a Sony movie, which costs the exact same budget as this, only just barely squeaked by 200 million recently. In their second weekend, Bad Boys has already done that. Yeah, they're going to be riding a high with this movie. So really great weekend for the IP films. You know what I mean? And like I've been saying, any movie success is great for theaters, for the box office, for movies in general. That's obviously awesome. I just wish that we could see more success with some of these other original films, no matter how you feel about it, because they're still original, especially movies like Furiosa, which aren't, they're part of IP, but they got really widespread acclaim as far as like, yeah, people are really digging this. Oh well, though. Oh well, we don't need to keep harping on that because this is admittedly a pretty swell time to be talking about box office numbers because it's cool to talk about hits like this. And then number 3, continuing on, like I was saying earlier, there was a movie that dipped out of the top 5 in my predictions that wound up right here holding over better than the rest. That would be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. People are kind of, catching on like, yeah, this movie has some pretty great legs. Even the director kind of did like a joking tweet going like, legs together strong, joking on the apes together strong bit. So it's like, even the director is like kind of making the point like, yeah, we're clinging on in there. We may not be, swinging right out of the gate on our opening weekend with Pixar numbers right here, but we're still doing pretty strong. People are really, curious about going to see this. People have been sufficiently spreading the word on it. Made 5.2 million this weekend, which now adds to a domestic total of 157 million and needs 19 million until it outgrosses Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And then worldwide, it is sitting at $374 million. So they still need about 106 million until they triple that 160 million initial production budget. But that being said, they have finally outgrossed the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes film by 12 million. It now needs 96 million until it outgrosses Rise. So it still has, sufficient holds. The intake is definitely decreasing. They are in the lower numbers here. But that being said, it is just, that's the thing about these recent Apes movies, they're just kind of quiet hits. And that's pretty cool. I really hope this bodes well for continuing this new storyline. I think especially with the director being so proud of how well it's holding, I think we might be in a pretty solid spot here. That's kind of the talk of the town is that, it's either like, oh, this box office is so dour, but then you wait a bit and it's like, oh, actually, it's kind of holding strong, and that's, optimistic. It gives me some optimism, you know what I mean? Number 4 is the Garfield movie, making 5.0 million, adding to a domestic total of 78 million, so it has finally outgrossed the original Bill Murray Garfield movie by 3 million. And then worldwide, same thing, now that it's sitting at 217 million, it has outgrossed the original Bill Murray movie by 9 million. So it is officially the highest grossing Garfield movie out of the 2 theatrical releases, or 2 previous theatrical releases. This would be the third. And also because they are about 23 million away from quadrupling that 60 million initial production budget, this is another one where it's kind of like we're just waiting any second for them to announce that they're going to move forward with more, that they're going to try to keep capitalizing on this. So yeah, there you go. Just another win. Of course, the top 4 that we have mentioned here are all IP films. Now we're going to move on to number 5, which is The Watchers, which is technically it's based on a book, and they did, more so than like Bullet Train, where that was based on a book, but they didn't really promote that. This one they did kind of put up like based on the novel by A.M. Shine sometimes in the marketing, so kind of, sort of, it's not like most people will know that still, though. Either way, this one is still not necessarily winning. It made 3.6 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 13 million. So for Blinding Edge Pictures, that is 22 million away from outgrossing Knock at the Cabin. Worldwide, it only boils up to 18 million in total, which is 36 million away from Knock at the Cabin. So still, it's shaping up to be that this is going to be the lowest earning of the Blinding Edge films that have been released. I was still not sure what the budget of this thing is. Like I was saying last week, and there are some visual effects shots in it, but it's not like the most grandiose spectacle you've ever seen. So it can't be too high, but I can't imagine that 18 million in total is a great number for this thing. Oh well, these things happen, and it's kind of to be expected with a kind of movie like this. I like just seeing the movie yourself, whether you like it or not. I think you have to admit it can be a pretty hard sell as far as like trying to recommend it to people or who you would recommend it to, especially if you didn't like it. So yeah, it's just kind of goes with the territory of this kind of movie, unfortunately. But oh well, we have 4 other hits. Let's move on to number 6, which is, If. Making 3.4 million, adding to a domestic total of 100 million. So that is 60 million away from outgrossing A Quiet Place 2 for John Krasinski. Worldwide, it is sitting at 173 million. So that is 123 million from outgrossing A Quiet Place 2 for John Krasinski. So yeah, the top 4 all hits, and now we're getting back into the familiar territory of, these next couple movies, like, oh, this is where we have been so far this summer. And it's not like their holdovers are necessarily causing a big rebound, you know what I mean? Because, it's sitting at 173 million worldwide, which for any other movie might be really great. If you give that number to The Watchers, that would be really great. But for 110 million price tag, you need to double that, in most cases to be considered a success. And that is not like they're not even really even close to getting to 200 million. So womp womp. And then we move on to number 7, which is still the most tragic thing for me because I love this movie so much. Furiosa Mad Max Saga. Oh my gosh. Like still just like, I really love that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes had such a great hold this weekend that it nudged up to number 3. But I wish something that positive could happen to Furiosa as well, even if it is kind of a harder sell. And Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, like I was kind of talking about a little while ago, it's not necessarily hitting all 4 quadrants, but you could take some younger kids to it, you know what I mean? Like you could do that because it, PG-13, some wiggle room. Furiosa is not really that, so it makes sense, I get it, but still. I really thought this would be the year where Mad Max is like the biggest box office hit or like just bigger than the rest, and it's not, and it's fine. We've talked about this already. We don't need to dwell on it too much. We have hits this weekend. It's all good. It made 2 million, adding to a domestic total of 63 million. So that places it 90 million away from Fury Road's domestic total. Worldwide, it is sitting at 148 million. So that places it 220 million away from Fury Road. So there you go. You can't win them all. Number 8 is The Fall Guy. Speaking of, you can't win them all. Making 1 million, adding to a domestic total of 87 million. So for David Leitch, that places it 16 million behind Bullet Train. Worldwide, it is sitting at 169 million, which places it 69 million away from Bullet Train. That's the sex number. I think the fact that that's all I have to add at this point, instead of, celebrating the accomplishments of passing Bullet Train for David Leitch, or finally getting to 200 million at least worldwide, that I think that just I think that just really says something about the movie. Number 9 is The Strangers Chapter 1. It was at number 10 last weekend, but it, snuck its way back up. It is in the hundred thousands, though. It made 760,000 this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 33 million. It needs 19 million at this point to outgross the original film. Not going to get there. Worldwide, it is sitting at 38 million, so it needs 45 million until it outgrosses the original. So not really making any more moves as far as outgrossing the original or, really getting more high up. I think quadrupling this 8.5 million budget is kind of all they're going to get at. They won't, 5 times it, but hey, it seems like they're moving forward with Chapter 2 in theaters. They released that image recently of Madeline Petch in the woods or something, like first look at Chapter 2 coming to theaters at some point, so maybe it's good. Maybe it's all good for them. And then closing out the video, number 10, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. That is crazy. This one is still here. Not Two Towers or even Return of the King. Did that come out? Maybe I got the date wrong. But Fellowship is still here, making 632,000, adding to a domestic total of 318 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at 894. So, congrats, Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings fans everywhere. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. So number 1, obviously, I think will be Inside Out 2. I think that hold is going to be really good. Then number 2, Bad Boys Ride or Die. And then number 3, I don't think this is too optimistic. I think pretty obviously it'll be the Bike Riders. It would be really insane to me if it maybe made more than Bad Boys Ride or Die. I feel like as far as where Bad Boys is at right now, it had a pretty great hold and it has a lot of audience members' attention, and Bike Riders, I think it could get into like double-digit millions, but I don't think it would be enough to surpass where Bad Boys is right now. So I think that'll be number 3, and obviously hope for the best. This movie only cost $40 million, so it just, I know it sounds like so much, right? And but it just needs 80 million, in total for the show's standards to be considered a success. It just needs a solid enough win, so we'll see how that goes. Number 4, I think, will be The Exorcism, despite maybe not, but the numbers were so low, outside of 1 and 2. I just feel like there's a great opportunity for this movie, mostly this, because there's also Thelma and some other movie that I'm forgetting the title of right now, and I just don't think those will have the same kind of push. But The Exorcism, Russell Crowe doing a horror movie, and it's a horror movie, that could sneak in here. And then number 5, I think, will be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.